Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Extreme Radio, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online, mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Welcome in, everybody. Spencer Thompson, Isaiah Austin. We've got a great interview on the show later today, and we got James Shannon for Skip the Sensitivity. Obviously, the first thing we got to cover is junior rugby. No, just kidding. That's not what we're covering first. First thing we got covered is Mr. Shannon has just turned an age that I'm not going to list because you can look at your Facebook profile. It's his birthday today. So I won't cover it too much because he said he's going to kill me on Friday. He's going to kill me regardless because I just mentioned it.
Just say it's closer to 40 than 50. It's closer to 40 than 50.
But, guys, of course, on behalf of me and Isaiah, and I'm sure on behalf of everybody else around the league, Mr. Shannon has started 8-Man Extreme, created it several years back through, inspiration from our good friend Travis Creasy, as well as other people around the league. But, I mean, James, happy birthday to you. You deserve it, man. And really great time to be your birthday, especially right before the playoffs.
It is truly the most wonderful time of the year. and it's even better when my birthday's on Friday night, which has happened my senior year, and it happened 2 years ago. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. I actually spent the day doing chores, and watching the Titans lose. So
yeah,
there you go.
That was embarrassing.
But I appreciate the kind words. Again, nothing's possible without everyone who contributes. And I always mention you guys because you guys do the most. But I'm very thankful for every head coach. I'm very thankful for every parent that sends us scoring updates. That's a massive, massive help. So there's a lot of people that contribute to this. So big shout out to them.
Yes, thanks to all of them, especially. And Isaiah, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the regular season is over. We're done with regular season play in 8-man football, and the playoffs are 5 days away.
Yeah,
I can't believe it.
That just hit me on Friday, actually. You remember, we were in the car.
Yeah, we're in the car like, oh, my gosh, the playoffs are next week?
I said, we got to get everything configured. I said, oh, we could just do that in a couple of weeks. I was like, wait a minute. The time is upon us.
Yeah, the time is upon us. But, of course, first thing we've got to do is we've got to recap the final week of regular season MTAC action. So helmet schedules up to top to bottom, everybody. The matchup of the bowl game, they're facing each other 2 weeks in a row. So part 1 of 2, Bowling Green Christian Academy up in Bowling Green got the win 38-25. And, of course, a lot of emotions are high at Riverside right now. As we mentioned on the show last week and on the broadcast on Thursday, Travis Creasy fighting leukemia, so he's turned over the football program to another member of Riverside. All our thoughts and prayers going out to him. We will announce something later in the show of what we are planning to do. We haven't worked out the full details because we're still trying to talk with people over at Riverside on their GoFundMe to figure out what we're doing. But we'll tell you exactly what we're going to do. It's just we haven't figured out the tiers and such of what we're planning on doing. Let me see here. And we do have a big announcement that we'll tell at the preview of the games that James just gave us. And we'll talk about that later. But 38-25, regardless of the emotions going high, all that kind of stuff. It may be a preview for the bowl game next week, Isaiah, but for Riverside to put 25 and only be within 13 points of Bowling Green, that shows that they are the number 3 seed in the South.
Yeah, Riverside has been playing in close games all season. I thought they put up a great fight. Hopefully, it'll be possible that Creasy will be able to watch the bowl game from home, and those guys are going to fight with everything they have for their coach, and it's going to be fun to see a repeat of this coming in the next week. Yeah,
we're really excited to see that game, and we'll of course talk about it during the previews later in the show. South Haven Christian School, they almost got one win on the season against Franklin Christian Academy, but FCA on Saturday night, they got the W 44-22. You look at the box score on that game. First quarter, 12-0 South Haven up. Second quarter, South Haven was up 22-20. Third quarter, I believe it was tied, if I can do my math. It was 28-28 tied. and then ended 16-14. FCA got the win by 2. So South Haven unfortunately falls to a winless season for the second time in 3 years. It just really shows how high school football itself can change in a single year when you lose senior leadership and such. But for FCA, at least, for them to get that close win with the amount of strengths they lost from last year, it's got to feel good for Franklin Christian.
Yeah, it really should. That was one of the most fun games. I am so glad FCA streams their games on Facebook because I was really wanting to watch that last game. I knew that would be a great matchup between the teams. I was really impressed with both sides and how they performed despite how their seasons have gone. And that was one of the best football games all around that I've seen this season. You know, the story of the game for South Haven, I was so impressed with Gagliano. Haven't seen a lot of him this season, but really stepped up. You know, Emmanuel Dang went down with injury a few weeks ago. Kind of got swept under the radar recently, but really made his presence known going into next season. Had a couple big returns, a lot of big runs and receptions. So he played well. And I think the play of the game was John Buchanan, who doesn't play a lot of defense, stopping Gagliano on the 2-point conversion to secure the 2-point lead for FCA. That was the play of the game, and it was so fun to watch. And Daniel Holcomb back in the starting lineup to finish it out. 3 wins for FCA, moving on to next season with a win.
Oh, it'll be fantastic for them, and it's 44-42. I think I said 22 by accident, but it was a 2-point win for FCA. James and I'll let James talk about it. I'll let James talk about this one a little bit because this is the only game we covered this season for Tennessee School for the Deaf since we couldn't get to that one against Georgia School for the Deaf. But the Heat managed to get the win 52-14. It looked close in the beginning with some of their star players, but James, very close, at least close in the first quarter, and then the Heat took the dominance. But, I mean, it kind of shows the youth of the Tennessee School for the Deaf because they only have 2 seniors. One of them was injured, but they've got 2 seniors graduating, so they're really looking for a great program going forward and more things to build off of in the next coming years.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for them, especially having 3 games canceled. Only getting their 4th game Thursday night, and then none of the games were rescheduled, so that was their last game. But Lorenzo Curry, a sophomore for them, as an 8th grader, we got to see him 2 years ago against Mississippi School for the Deaf, and we were really impressed. But he stepped up another notch. He came in a little bit later on the year, a little bit later on, but he took the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, as everyone saw. He had a 60-yard interception return for a touchdown. And then he had a 70-yard run for a touchdown. Was called back on a ridiculous call. He ran for a 70-yard touchdown, and it was called back for a illegal formation penalty. Apparently, the tight end was not on the line of scrimmage. But if you watch the play, the tight end had nothing to do with the play itself. Curry actually ended up reversing field. He started to the right, came back to the left, and outran the entire Heat defense. And so that would have helped. That would have actually put them in the lead. But instead, they kind of fell behind, and it was really just a numbers game for them. I mean, they only had 10 guys on active Thursday night, and that's tough when you're playing someone like the Heat who has a bench of 5, 6, 7 guys who can come in and contribute. You saw guys like Ty Whitaker get touchdowns, Kelton Copeland. It's really good to see people stepping up. Of course, the news coming out that their receiver Justin Goolsby is no longer with the team, and so that's obviously a little bit of a hit to them losing a kick returner and receiver. But it's really cool to see people step up, and you wonder with those guys stepping up how much that'll help against Webb.
Yeah, and for the Tennessee Heat getting one more game and another, they had a lot of great sportsmanship after the game, saying they're willing to take the drive up to Knoxville and play against each other. And hopefully, we'll see the Tennessee School for the Deaf play more teams in the MTAC next year, or even in the following years.
And let me throw this in there. I've actually talked to a couple coaches who are looking forward to scheduling games with Tennessee School for the Deaf next year, whether they travel to Knoxville or whether they come here. And I love to see that. I think it'll help the Tennessee School for the Deaf program because a lot of their kids come from West Tennessee. So if they can get a game in Jackson with Sacred Heart, or even a game here in Nashville, it means that parents don't have to try to drive all the way to Knoxville. And I think that would really, really help them out. And I think it'd be great for MTAC too to get to play a little bit different team, a little bit different style, and just get to play someone, even get to play someone with better uniforms than anyone in the MTAC.
Yeah, according to you on that one. It's just a great game to see on Thursday night. Isaiah, we were at Christian Community hosted Lighthouse, and it was somewhat close in the beginning, but Christian Community took the win 66-14 on their senior night. And what a fantastic way for Christian Community to end the season. Second year in a row that they have gone undefeated on their regular season, poised for hosting the MTAC semifinal next week. But I mean, that kind of shows, and I know you were struggling to be positive in the broadcast booth last night because of some of the decisions that were being made on the offensive side for Lighthouse. But a great win for Christian Community as they head into the playoffs next week.
Yeah, if you're at the end of the season when all of the films start to come out, if you're looking for a good football game, watch it for sure, but stop at the 3-minute mark in the second quarter. That's where things exploded. At that point, it was a 20-6 game. Could have easily been 20-14. It was a very close ball game, but a fumble occurred on the kickoff, and before we knew it, there had been 2 fumbles back-to-back, and 24 points had been put on the board in a minute 34 for CCS. 3 touchdowns for Daughter. 4 touchdowns for Rowley. What you'd expect out of those 2 guys. And the 66-14 win just absolutely blew the doors wide open on a Lighthouse team that was not prepared to hang in that second half.
Yeah, it didn't look like they were 100% prepared. But again, Lighthouse didn't have anything necessarily to play for except for their seniors to have a good final game for their high school careers. But they go out with a loss against Christian Community. We were originally going to broadcast Lancaster Christian hosting Sacred Heart, but they moved that game back to Thursday due to the prediction of rain. But that moving back didn't matter as Lancaster beat Sacred Heart 54-12. The Knights got it done prior to in their last home game prior to going on the road to face off against Christian Community in the semi. And obviously, Sacred Heart, they had a tough loss going up to Bowling Green the previous week, playing for that bowl slot, so they also didn't have anything to play for. But really great on Sacred Heart, for their first season back. It wasn't a 100% positive record, but for them to be able to do what they did to get that win against Lighthouse, to only lose by 2 to the Heat, and to have really close games in their division and at least put up a reasonable amount of points on all the teams they face. It's got to be a great feeling for them going into their second year in MTAC.
Yeah, for sure. And, Lancaster is just different tier. I mean, one team is coming off of a rough couple of seasons following the suspension. And the other team, although they did have a down year in 11-man, this team was ready to come in and be dominant from minute 1. We've seen it since the beginning of the season. Kudos to Sacred Heart for being able to perform like they have this season with the numbers that they had. But Lancaster, a huge win headed into the postseason.
Yeah, a huge win for them, especially. And again, Sacred Heart, it'll be their second year back in the conference. They've been part of the conference for several years, except for 2017. Again, we covered Christian Community, Lighthouse, Riverside, Bowling Green. The Webb School hosted St. Andrews Swanee for a matchup in the South that didn't have any impact on the playoffs either. None of the games this weekend had any impact, but 56-8, Webb essentially blew out St. Andrews Swanee. Webb going for the second time in their team history, as James confirmed with me, second time in their team's history that they have been undefeated on the regular season. And again, not counting the 11-man game against Middle Tennessee Christian School because that's an exhibition game when they're an 8-man team. That's not being counted. So for them to go undefeated on the regular season, huge motivator for them as they get to host 2 home games in a row. Their home game next week against the Heat in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I know Swanee has had their ups and downs this season, but they have been in almost all of their games in a winnable situation. And kudos to them for fighting hard despite the amount of players that they lost and despite the amount of fill-ins that they had to have at different positions. Fumbling and trying to figure out who their quarterback is going to be. It's been tough, but again, Webb has not been in a tightly contested game this whole season. Am I wrong? I might be wrong on this. They've only given up let me check real quick. I actually am very interested in this stat. Yep. I believe so. They've only given up 1 touchdown max in every game in the MTAC. They have not played a full game yet, and hopefully in the playoffs we can see some closer ball games with Webb and also CCS and see them compete for 4 quarters. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they're going to have to compete for 4 quarters against the Tennessee Heat in their semifinal next week. It's going to be a great matchup for them as we head into the 2018 postseason. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to have people as a guest on the show. We haven't had a guest in over a month and a half, but we had him on for the beginning of the season. We had him on to going into this year, just reelected as the president of the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference. We have Mr. Tim Petitt on the show once again. And Tim, again, thank you for donating your time to come on the show, man. And I've heard, since you transitioned, we talked to you. You were just about to start in your new job as principal for Christian Community. How has that job been since you started back in July?
Very busy.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lot of fun. There's been some challenges, as there always are with new jobs, and getting used to a new place and new people, and but some things are the same for the most part. Christian education is pretty similar from school to school, and so feel like we've settled in pretty well. But it's never easy.
Yeah, that does sound. At least you've been able to migrate fairly well, and you've migrated into a school that's now in the semifinals. Were there last. They were there last year, of course. You remember you were on the other side of things when FCA went to that semi last year against CCS, but now you're on the side that's hosting a semi this year. So that's too. I want to ask you, how do you feel as the president? Seeing these matchups solidify a few weeks ago by virtuous things. How do you feel about the matchups that we have for the MTAC Bowl and the semi-playoffs?
Well, I think we've had a lot of pretty good football in the league this year. I think some of the teams that we thought were going to be pretty good came through as pretty good. A couple of programs are down, but they're very young. So all in all, I'm really excited about MTAC football. I'm excited about the playoffs coming up. Nervous, of course, because the school where I work is in it, and I want them to do well. But Lancaster's a good team, so we'll see how that goes. That's going to be a great game. MTAC Bowl, really, really proud of BGCA and all that they have accomplished in their short football history. They just started football 4 years ago. I was just reading an article that one of my friends from Bowling Green posted online, the WKU publication about Riley Davis and BGCA football, and it's really cool. That's fun. I mean, I was at BGCA when we went to the first scheduling meeting for MTAC, and had voted to begin football. So that's really exciting, and so I'm hoping for a good game between BGCA and Riverside. And as far as the semis, again, I'm excited about ours. A little nervous about it. Webb, man, they are good this year, and the Heat has been really good too. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm bummed that I can't get to that game. I'd like to watch it.
Yeah, both of those semis and the bowl game especially for the bowl game for the guys being in it, especially for Travis Creasy.
Yes.
Especially with all the stuff he's been dealing through. I did want to ask about with Creasy. I know that that they've started a GoFundMe on there, and we at 8-Man Extreme, we're going to be doing our own ways to contribute to that as well. Has the conference had any discussions yet about what they're wanting to do as a conference to help towards that?
Not any real discussion, I wouldn't say. In some of our communications this week, I did mention that what was going on with Travis, and that I felt like we needed to do something, and everyone echoed that. But we haven't decided specifically what that will be. I think we will be looking at the November 3rd date and see if we can get something together that will be a blessing to Travis and his family in this fund. And I mean, anybody who knows Travis loves him, and we're all praying for him and his family. And I mean, I was shocked. I told you the other night, I was shocked when I heard that, and really threw me for a loop. But now it's time to just keep praying for him and help him out as best we can, and come together as a conference. Put aside rivalries and all that kind of stuff, which is a lot of fun. Sometimes gets taken a little too far, but none of that matters right now. Right now, we just we have a guy that we all love who needs our prayers and needs our help. So that's what we need to do.
Yeah, not one person, as I told you in our discussion, not one person, and I'm sure it'll never happen, not one person has said a negative thing about Creasy. No bad
Right.
experiences with him, nothing. So he deserves all the best of love. So now that we have to have the semis coming around, you mentioned November 3rd as that's the date set for the consolation and championship game. So far, there's not been official confirmation. Some things have been said, and we want to know if there's any official confirmation. Do we have a site for the MTAC consolation and championship game?
Yes, we do. And Spence, I was tempted to say something on Friday night, but I just decided I was going to wait because I knew we were going to be talking today. First, I want to thank the University of South and how they offered to allow us to play there. I had a conversation with them this week, and just talking about the logistics and what would need to be done, and get a better view of what that would entail. And after my conversation with them, which was a great conversation, we just I got back with the board and put it out there that my concern was because of the distance. We didn't have any one school that would be in charge of the event. We were worried that it wasn't going to come together the way that it should, and it would turn into a negative experience for the boys and the families. So there were a couple other places that were proposed. So I just put it out there for an up and down vote as far as out of those places, and we all agreed that University of South would be wonderful. We would love to do that moving forward. Probably wouldn't be next year because of their scheduling, but maybe the year after. But we just could not work out the logistics in a way that we felt comfortable with, and it's too big of a deal to go into it without a real solid plan. So we'll work on that moving forward. And the board decided that CCS was going to host the games on November the 3rd. And again, I know because I work there, but as I explained to you at the beginning of the year, that I'm not a voting member of the board now. And I didn't propose it. It was proposed by someone else, and then the board just voted, and we had a majority vote to do it at CCS.
We have talked about it on the show before about CCS being the potential host of the championship, and potentially harnessing the true place where 8-man football is supposed to be played on a 40-by-80. And I know in conversations you and I have had, and as I've had with some other coaches, some of them think that a championship, regardless of it being 8 or 11-man, should potentially be on a 50-by-100. Do you think it'll make a huge difference, or any of the teams will voice concerns about the for the first time in MTAC championship being on a 40-by-80 field?
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some concerns, especially for people who play on the standard regulation field for 11-man. And that is something that was considered, but the 80-by-40 is the standard field for 8-man, even though it's acceptable to play on variations. But as a coach, I thought about that too. Um, I'd never played on 80-40 my first year. In fact, I'd never coached 8-man before, so there were a lot of surprises for me. But what I found was that if you don't game plan for it, especially offensively, then it can be a lot more challenging. But if a coach knows what they're playing on going into it, then they should be able to adjust their game plan accordingly. Now, defensively, those defensive coaches, they breathe a sigh of relief that you're playing on an 80-40 field, and have less empty space to cover. But yeah, I mean, it's going to affect some teams if they don't game plan accordingly. But now that they all know what they're going to be facing, they should be okay. And the field is in great shape. Was just overseeded, and so the grass is good and thick, especially for this time of year. So I think they'll be pleased with it. And we're going to be meeting tomorrow and several times in the coming days to really start planning. We want it to be an event. We want to really roll out the red carpet for everybody, and especially do something for the Creasy Fund. But we want to get the maximum participation for that reason, but also for just to get people up there and really enjoy some good 8-man football that we think we're going to see. Out of all the possible matchups, I don't see a bad game in any of them. So it's gonna be a fun day of November football.
Yeah, we're really excited to to broadcast all of those games as well. Before we move on to some other good questions, I'm thinking of the one question I do have, if I can ask about this. I'm not sure if you're comfortable with telling us which places were proposed or not for hosting the MTAC Championship, because in this situation with everything that's going on with Creasy, I would say maybe consider Riverside, maybe consider that. Have some of the funds from admission potentially go towards the Creasy Fund.
Well, there was one other school had proposed or had offered to host it, and that was Webb, and they did a really good job last year. And so that was the other school, and that they had kind of been, if they had offered at the beginning, okay, if we don't find a place, then y'all can have it at our place. And so again, it's a wonderful facility, wonderful school, so we didn't really have any bad options. But so the three were Webb, University of South, and CCS, and CCS was decided upon.
Okay, okay. Well, at least in that case, I'm glad that the board came to a consensus on that. And needless to say, CCS is a great place to host it, because I mean, I've said it so many times that whoever decided to put a Philly cheesesteak to sell at a football game, man, that is one of the most amazing Philly cheesesteaks I've ever had. That's one of the
They do
most
have some
amazing.
good food. That's true.
Yeah, just great parking, and White House has just about everything that you would need, especially with it being right off the interstate. I mean, I'm really excited for the championship and consolation game to be there, and I mean, we're gonna be there next week for the semi, so it's gonna be even better. So moving on here, I know the championship side is decided here. I think this is a needless to ask question, but both of the semifinals, does it still default to the number one seed in North and South are hosting it? So CCS and Webb are hosting the semis?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I figured with that, because I do know that in our conversation, that just to make sure that everyone's clarified here, regardless of what the result was going to be from Friday night's game between Bowling Green and Riverside, the North team in the bowl game is set to host it this year, and that was set. Actually, I don't think I asked you that. So, from our conversation, you said there was a new regulation put in place by the conference that the host team rotates per year, and this year it starts with the North team is hosting the bowl game. The next year it's going to be the South. So, just to make sure everybody's clarified on that, when was that policy put in place? Kind of the thought process behind that.
Well, I don't like not having a system in place. And so when people are asking the questions about this game, where the MTAC Bowl was going to be hosted, and again, we're still kind of moving on from having Curry Ingram in place as that central location for these things. Last year, St. Andrews was allowed to host. And so knowing that the South hosted it last time, I proposed that we just rotate it from north to south year to year, so that it's always decided as far as who's going to host it. We just don't know the specific teams yet at the beginning of the season, so that's never in question. And so in the conversations, though, I was told that that had already been decided in years past, but it had been moved away from. So we just kind of put it back out there and said, guys, what do you think about this plan? And everybody agreed that it was a good idea to do that. So yeah, the North, since the South hosted it last year, North is up this year. Next year it'll be the South team, whomever that is, that will host it. We'll just go back and forth that way. We're also looking, championship game. I don't know if we could do the same system, but we need to have some conversations about that. If we're not going to be identifying a centrally located site or a special site like University of the South or Austin P or something like that from year to year, then we need to have something in place that clearly says where it will be, even if we don't know the specific teams. It's just nobody likes to have the questions, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I could agree with you. It's definitely great to have a system in place beforehand, so you at least have an idea of what's going to happen. You talk about rotating the teams. I think you could potentially do. I know that the NFL for the Super Bowl, they rotate the home and away teams every year for the Super Bowl. It's just on an alternating basis. So maybe something like that could happen for the championship potentially. But I know your main system is whoever's the number 1, number 2 seed, and then you look at potential. So with that, that's actually a good question I have for you on this. So hypothetical here, if Webb and CCS get to the championship, they're both number 1 seed. Neither of them have taken a loss. How do you decide the home and away team on that one?
When you started, after I finished talking, you started thinking that. My first thought was, wow, I wonder who's going to be the home team this year, if that happens. And then my second thought was, man, I hope he doesn't ask me that because I don't know that off the top of my head. So thanks for embarrassing me there, Spence.
Well, it's an interesting
no,
thing.
You know what? I'd have to check in. There's something in place, but right now, just I can't think of what it is. I was thinking back to last year. Between CCS and South Haven, which was an unbelievable game.
Oh, yes.
Who was the home game? I know CCS was wearing blue.
I think in that one, CCS was home because they beat South Haven, because CCS was the number 1 seed and South Haven was the number 2 seed. So that was at least decided.
Okay. I don't know. You know what? I'll have to look that up. That's a really good question. I'm sorry I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Maybe a coin toss. Maybe that's how it'll come down to. I mean, because they're both.
Yeah, we love those
matched.
coin tosses.
Yeah. That's because I know
now, we may have something in place that I'm just not thinking of right now. I have to check with some of my other board members, and maybe have to give old Scott Dorsett a call, and see what his thought is. But Jenna might be more familiar with it. But yeah, gosh, I don't know. I'll see if I can find out though. I'll try to find out, and I'll try to let you know as soon as I do.
Yeah, that'll be great, and I'm sure, regardless of who's team home, team away, it basically comes down to what the display is on the scoreboard and who gets to call the coin toss. So I mean, it's more symbolic in that regard, but I mean, it'll be interesting for sure. First things first, both Webb and CCS have to win their semifinal.
Yeah, that's right, and that is not. I mean that is not a certainty. Nope. in either side. Yeah. There's two very, very good other teams, and those number 2 seeds are not to be taken lightly. So
absolutely.
That's what I was talking to Jordan when we were talking a little bit about hosting. I was like, all right, man, now let's see if we can make it there.
Yeah, first
into
things
the
first.
Championship game. Golly.
Yeah, that'll be the first thing on that. Now, I do want to ask because a few weeks ago we finally, at least the news came out. It finally got word that people were made aware is that Lighthouse Christian School was not eligible for the playoffs, and Sacred Heart was. I know we clarified it through my stream on Facebook. I did a few weeks ago, but just for those who didn't necessarily get the full update on that and didn't know the full story, just kind of walk us through how it was that Lighthouse was not eligible for the postseason and how Sacred Heart was.
Well, it's two different situations. Sacred Heart was voted back into the conference, and they were allowed to, just like anybody else coming back into the conference, as long as all the rules are followed and everything is okay, they're eligible for postseason play. So that it was didn't have anything to do with them being Sacred Heart. It just
Mm-hmm.
had to do
Right.
with them being a new team and following the rules. So that made them eligible. Lighthouse, in order to, they had requested that they could play a transfer player. The hardship was requested, but it was denied, and but they chose to go ahead and play with that player, and so that made them ineligible for the postseason. And that's not an uncommon occurrence. That's happened, I think, gosh, every year that I can think of since I've been involved. And that's part of being small schools is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to do things like that to just to be able to build a team. And so that was their situation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. At least in terms of Lighthouse, just one player not being eligible and such. But I mean, regardless if they were eligible for the playoffs or not, they had a heck of a season. They had some great
Oh
stars on their
yeah,
side of the
gosh,
ball and
they are
everything.
so athletic
Now,
and well coached. They're gonna be a force to be reckoned with very soon.
yeah, for sure. In terms of Sacred Heart, us at Eight Man Extreme, we're kind of by law. I'm trying to think of the right word here. Either by law priests, prophets, something along that. We're like by law prophets, I guess I'll go with. So we looked at the bylaws, and it said that when a team is voted into the conference, they're in their first year. They're on a probation year, and we assumed that was the case with Sacred Heart because they were out of the conference for the year and then voted back in. And it states in the bylaws that if you're in a probation year, you are eligible for the postseason if you are voted in prior to the scheduling meeting. And we were there at the scheduling meeting, and Sacred Heart was not present. So with that bylaw, now those were the 2017 bylaws. The website doesn't have the 2018 bylaws up on there yet, or at least we haven't managed to see a copy of those. But so they were not voted in prior to the February scheduling meeting. So was there another scheduling meeting to allow that to happen, or how did that permission come about?
Well, they they were not voted in until the spring meeting, and the fall meeting or the scheduling meeting had already taken place. But if you remember, HCA was had announced that they were not going to have football, and we had been in conversation with Sacred Heart for quite a while leading up to their reapplication um, and getting voted back into the league. So we, because HCA was stepping out and they were coming in, we allowed them to just kind of almost fill in that slot, even though it's not exactly what happened because they just didn't take over their schedule or anything. But we were able to get them scheduled in a manner that allowed them to play everybody in their division. And so that's the other part of being eligible for the playoffs is you have to play all the required games.
Okay, so that at least clarifies it on that one because I mean, it's the same thing with Lighthouse. Regardless of if they're eligible or not, they still played a heck of a season. So several of
Yeah,
the guys on their
yeah,
side, I mean, especially for Sacred Heart to do what they did, going from 11-man winless season, then to come back to 8-man football and still have some really close games against the teams in their division and throughout their season. I mean, still a fantastic franchise down there down in Jackson, and I know that you could probably agree with me on this. Is that that it's exciting to see how they're going to perform next season.
yeah. I mean, listen, we want good quality football. And the when you're small, like most of our schools are, your talent level can vary from year to year. So we don't always have the powerhouses from year to year, and it's good to see these other programs growing. I loved having Sacred Heart back, um, and I think that's really going to be good for more teams that we can have, and the better teams that we can have. It's just going to be good for our conference and 8-man football. So I was really excited that we were able to accommodate them and get them back into our league. And yeah, I'm looking forward to some really good things moving forward in the next few seasons as some of these young teams grow up and we get to see some really good football again. Hey, by the way, I want to say this real quick. I got to see where his mom had posted it, Braden Holcomb playing at Carson Newman. I got to watch. Did you see that, Spencer? Did you see those highlights?
Yeah, we've seen all the posts of the guys who are going up to Division II, even Division I football for 8-man.
Yeah, did you hear Lighthouse's nose guard is now playing for Arkansas State now?
It's awesome.
D1.
Wow. That's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. So, man, I was proud of Braden, 2 levels. One, as his former coach, and 2, as the president of the conference. I'm like, man, we need to get the word out that these guys are able to play at the next level and have success.
Yeah, and
so
especially
it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, especially helping us in that case. They just had a guy who played 8-man football get drafted to the Dallas Cowboys recently. So it's a step in the right direction for sure. We're really looking forward to getting more exposure to these guys and giving them more opportunity as we go forward. The only lighthearted this is a lighthearted question I have for you. I asked you this back in July, and I have a feeling you already know what question I'm going to ask. So 10 years ago the conference started. Did the board say anything, or is it just going to be something like on the T-shirt for the champion saying like 10 years?
No, you know what? We have not had that discussion as the board yet. Not since summer. But all right, I'm going to tell you what, Spencer. There's going to be a 10 somewhere.
Fantastic.
On the field or something like that. We'll mention it. We'll put it on a T-shirt or something. Yeah. No, it's a big deal. I saw the NFL. I think next season it's the 100th year.
Yep, 100th season of the NFL. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now we're nowhere near 100. But only 10% of it. But big deal that we've been around for 10 years. A lot of good things have happened, and so we do need to celebrate it. I appreciate you bringing that up all the time. But seriously, I do appreciate you bringing it up. So it keeps it on my brain, so I won't forget it. But no, we need to do something. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be yet.
Maybe see if you could talk to the field manager at CCS, have him print the MTAC logo and a 1 next to it on the middle of the field, so it shows kind of 10 with that MTAC circle on there. Either that or that on the 20-yard lines. If your field, whoever your groundskeeper is, has the paint and has the ability to do that, that would be fantastic. But
yeah, it's got a little bit of a Big Ten ring to it, man. I'm an SEC guy, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I can.
No, not sure if you can do that. Yeah, I mean, hey, the MTAC logo is orange, and I know you're a Florida fan, so it's got a little bit of orange on
orange
there.
And blue, orange and blue,
yeah.
And that was brought in. That was before me, so. It's just destiny. That's a good color combination for sure.
Oh yeah, James over here is a University of Tennessee fan, so he may be a little bit could hear a little bit of grumbling on his side of the things.
Yeah. They're getting better. Couple years.
Yeah,
couple more years.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show ahead of the playoffs, Tim. We're looking forward to seeing you at the playoffs as well as the Constellation Championship game, and we're really excited for how the season is going to finish for MTAC. And again, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Spence. It was fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, that was Tim Petitt, the president of the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference, and we have it confirmed now, officially. The MTAC Championship and Consolation game are at Christian Community. They tried the University of the South. It fell through, and it is going to be a really great place to host the championship, in my opinion. Constellation game. Great concessions, just right off the highway. And
I've been pulling for 80 yards since the season started.
40 by 80. Yeah, you've been on the side of that from Skip the Sensitivity. I remember that episode.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. All right, this seems kind of fitting. I have a feeling there's going to be some backlash coming from this, but it's time for Skip the Sensitivity right after this interview. Mr. James Shannon giving his opinions alone, and some of us giving our individual opinions on that, but not reflective of 8-Man Extreme, of course. And James, I'm sorry about that comment I made about University of Tennessee. I know you're grumbling over there up in Springfield, that town up there. Great town of Springfield.
It's Springfield.
Yeah, great town up there. I know you're grumbling just a little bit about the UT stuff, but the important thing is to focus on 8-man football here. So, the championship has been decided. 13 days before the championship, or whenever they had that meeting last week or the week before, whenever that was finalized. It is at Christian Community. For the first time ever, the MTAC Championship is being hosted on a 40-by-80 field. Your thoughts?
I love it. I've been just like Isaiah. I've been a proponent of it from day one. No, don't get me wrong. I loved the games at Curry Ingram. I wasn't as much of a fan as about Webb last year, but I love it. I love the fact. Now I think it's different in the fact that definitely there's a little bit of a curve that's going to occur with Webb and Lancaster and even the Heat. And whoever ends up playing in the consolation game, it's still a curveball for them. Obviously, Christian Community is used to playing on that field. They haven't lost a game there in 2 years. And so that kind of stacks the deck a little bit. But, in terms of you asked the question, and I would have considered Riverside just because that's more of a neutral site. But I know with everything happening with Coach Crazy, I know that would have been hard to pull off. I don't know as a conference why you could have. I don't know. I don't know why the conference can't. I understand the whole host school, but you've got to be able to coordinate your own championship game. But anyways, I love it. I'm totally down with it, and not because that's my alma mater, not because that's the field I played on, because it's genuinely the best atmosphere in the league, hands down. And that is not to slight any atmosphere at all. I've been to Webb, I've been to Swanee, Riverside, you name it. I've been there. I've been to every field, and everyone has their own unique thing about it, feel about it. But in terms of just the setup, I totally love the game being at CCS.
Yeah, and again, I'll agree with you. The location is great right off of the interstate. The location's really great off the interstate. Fantastic concession stand that's there. That's almost championship caliber, I would argue. The field condition is great. The parking situation isn't bad. I mean, it is a good place to host the championship. I agree with you on that. And I have no ties to CCS at all. I have no ties. So I can agree with you on that. And I know Isaiah
and let me add this too. Again, a lot of people are going to throw out the homer thing, and I've been an advocate of an 80-by-40 field at all. I was an advocate of moving it to if South Haven's field from the last couple years had been available, the Martin Luther King Jr. Park up here in Springfield, it can be painted for 80-by-40. I've advocated that field because they actually have locker rooms. The concession stand is great. The seating is great. The parking is great. I've advocated it. So it's not just advocating CCS should host it. It's advocating that it needs to be on an 80-by-40 field. It needs to not be in the middle of nowhere, and it needs to have plenty of seating. And I do not agree with the league on many things. I am not pro league. I literally have zero complaints about this decision. Now, maybe about when it was made, but in terms of the decision itself, I have zero complaints.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. We're really looking forward to it. Now, we did ask you about this a few weeks ago when the playoffs were finalized, but we're going to ask it again because sometimes people's memory is gone. Your thoughts on the matchup for the MTAC semis and the MTAC Bowl?
The MTAC Bowl, obviously, it's a tough situation because with Coach Crazy not being there, it's not taking away from the Riverside coaches, but on the one hand, you do want to play your heart out for Coach Crazy if you're from Riverside, but on the other hand, it's just very disheartening to not have him on the sideline. So, it's tough for those guys. For Bowling Green, obviously going for win number 7. That completely shattering their win record. That's fantastic as well. We got a good preview of it this last week, and I think that's going to be a good game. I think that I'll save my prediction for it, but I do want to give a little bit of breaking news. And of course, this apparently has to be cleared by the league, but via my sources, the MTAC Bowl will be this Saturday at 3:00 at Riverside Christian. And it's going to have some kind of a benefit for Travis Creasy. Again, I know that has to be processed through the league. if I'm correct. But I know that people on both sides were communicating and trying to work this out, and so the MTAC Bowl is moved. The whole thing about this policy being in place where it went north and south, and they got away from it being a policy. If that's the case, it's not really a policy. It's kind of something they set up in place and then they got away from. I don't think that it should be that way. My feelings on it. I'm in favor of a 16 playoff, but regardless of the fact, that game's going to be great. The semis, you asked me my thoughts on the games, and then we got predictions later on. So I'm gonna say my predictions, but I think we do have two good matchups. But I think that this year has the highest build up to a championship game since 2014, really, because with Webb and CCS being undefeated in the regular season, that's right, I said undefeated in the regular season because the 11-man game does not count. I think this is the biggest matchup for a championship game in a while. But in terms of the semis, I'm looking forward to both semis.
Well, it's that portion of the show again. It's that portion where we have to give our predictions. So now, this is the portion. Now, James on this one, he didn't predict these preseason. He didn't know what the playoff scenarios or the bowl game was going to be. So he may be able to catch up to Jonathan Thompson here. Or he could take decisions that are so very unlikely that he's hoping on being that 1 percentile that'll make him win. But James is going week by week now, even though it's only
no.
for 2 weeks.
Jonathan pulled ahead by about 4 games after Bowling Green beat Riverside and FCA beat South Haven. So the contest is kind of over at this point. I only lost by 4 games, and that's after picking the games in July. So I'm good.
All right. It's time. All right, it's time. Isaiah, we'll go first. We'll go first with the MTAC Bowl. Even though it's on Saturday, we'll go with that one. Bowling Green is going down to Riverside, 3 p.m. Saturday game. Obvious benefit for Creasy. We're excited. We're excited for that one. And yes, if you guys don't already know, we are calling both of the semi games, and we are calling the bowl game now that it's on a Saturday. We'll reveal in a little bit who the commentary crews. We'll reveal who the commentary crews are, but we are going down to Riverside on Saturday to call that game. I believe James and I are going to be on the call for that one. Maybe Isaiah's going to. You going to be there on Saturday, Isaiah? Did we decide that for Riverside?
We'll figure it out after the show. Now that we know for sure.
Okay, yeah. Now that it's almost 100% confirmed because it has to be passed with the league, Riverside Bowling Green, but. It's time for your prediction on this one, man. The number 3 seeds, obviously, Bowling Green beat Riverside up in Bowling Green on Friday night. And now the advantage that Riverside potentially has is they're at home. Bowling Green's having to take the same travel they did last week. But it's going to be a heck of a ball game in the bowl. And not only that, but a great fundraiser for Travis and his family.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And, Bowling Green has had a very strong season. And I know that they did have high expectations coming into the season, and I think that most of the expectations have lived up to it. And I think that this is going to be a season that they're going to look back at as the season where their football program really started to excel. They've been fun to watch this year. I think we're going to have a repeat of this week. I think Bowling Green is just too strong offensively in their linebacker core. And although Riverside does certainly have a chance in this game, it's still going to be different with a different head coach over there. So I'm going with Bowling Green pulling it out 34-22.
33-22. Well, James, it's time for your bowl prediction.
You are a straight up Grinch, Isaiah. Oh my gosh.
Grinch.
I'm picking Riverside. I picked them last week.
Maybe you're the Grinch because I usually get it right.
Oh,
that's fine.
We need to do a wager next year, like you and Jonathan.
That's fine. Anyways, I am picking Riverside, especially at home.
You gonna elaborate on that with Riverside's, or is it you're just going because of the?
I think you look at the travel and you look at everything and I'm picking Riverside on this one.
All right, time for the semifinals. So, We'll start first with the North games. Christian Community School hosts Lancaster Christian Academy, and the amount of emotions that are running for Lancaster fans right now is crazy. They've only taken one loss on the season. They have not faced.
You mean crazy?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And thanks for joining us on the show, Travis. Hope you're doing well. But the amount of emotions that you have as a Lancaster fan, they have to be off the charts because you're facing a undefeated team for 2 years in a row who's got stars on both sides of the ball. And you're a team yourself that has stars on both sides of the ball, but you have that one loss to Webb, who, again, Webb and CCS haven't faced each other, but it is going to be a heck of a matchup up there in Christian Community. Both of those teams, a complete slugfest. It is going to be tough for either side to get the win out, Isaiah.
Yeah, and I think it's probably going to take Lancaster another year or two to get up to the tier of MTAC champion. You know, and I think this upset is much more likely to happen than the other side. I think it's definitely doable. I think it's definitely it's going to be in that strong receiver core, and their running game. You know, it's going to be tough to get stops against this CCS running back core as well. But they're gonna need to rely on their offense to be able to keep up. But I have FCA winning this 40-14, or excuse me, CCS winning this 40-14.
CCS 40-14. James,
I said FCA because of how awesome that game was yesterday.
Yeah. James, all the haters are going to be saying you're a homer. You know, all the haters are going to be saying, oh, you're just trying not to be a homer no matter what prediction you give. But let's hear it. Who do you got on this one?
Well, considering CCS hasn't lost at home, listen, I'm going to bring stats on this one, okay? CCS has not lost at home in 2 years, and they have never, ever lost a playoff game at home. I'm taking CCS on this one.
You got CCS.
Hey, we agree.
You guys both agree on CCS. Okay. Webb and the Tennessee Heat. The Heat are excited. First playoff berth in 5 years, but not by their own hand. It was by Lighthouse being ineligible. So they're excited, but Webb, again, they have stars on both sides of the ball that may overpower the Tennessee Heat. But again, Ryan Scott can be able to pull some tricks up his sleeve. So I mean, this is going to be one of those semis that arguably some people may think it's already set in stone, but it's still going to be an interesting matchup down in Bell Buckle.
Yeah, and the Heat's one of those teams that you never know what to expect coming in. They could be the best team on the field, or they could lay an egg. And I think that this Friday, Webb is just so strong, and I just feel inside that this game is not going to be close. I think the difference in skill and health is very, very polar on this. I have Webb winning this one 59-6.
Well, another almost like a blowout semi that almost what happened last year with South Haven when they went down to Webb, except they were the away team at the time. James, how do you feel on this one?
Same story, different year. Listen, we said last year, Webb, there's no way they could lose to South Haven. The only thing Webb's going to have more than Heat is penalty yards. They might have more penalty yards than Heat has points. I'm taking the Heat in this one. Listen, if there's any upset, if there's an upset that can happen, it's this one. It's this one right here. Heat, I'm calling it. Heat over Webb. It's a Heat CCS championship. There you go.
Hey, if either of the second seeds upset, I'm calling it now. At the championship, I will wear a butler's uniform and cater a steak dinner to him, either coach and their wife.
Listen.
I'm not kidding.
Y'all think I'm crazy for picking this upset, or crazy, whatever you want to say.
Listen, I'm holding you to
there
that,
has
Isaiah.
not been. Listen. The last 2 years, actually the last 3 years, we've had an upset. Last year it was South Haven. The year before that, both the number 2 seeds won. 2015, it was who had the upset? I want to say it was oh gosh, I'd have to look, but I know there was an upset. So I am taking Heat with the upset.
James, you're going to go more behind. I have a feeling that you're either going to go more behind on Jonathan on that one, or you're going to predict the upset of the century. You're taking a fine line between that one. But, hey, I mean, watch it reverse the other way. Webb wins and Lancaster wins. Imagine if that would happen.
No, I don't think that one happens. If anything happens, we'll have a Lancaster Heat championship, and so we're either going to have full out upset or no upset at all. But the upset that could happen is the Heat taking it to Webb, just like South Haven did to Webb again.
I think we have a Ma'at style governance structure here in the MTAC where it is practically that Webb and CCS are Caesar, and all the other people in the MTAC work at them gymnasiums of Rome.
I mean, way to pull the history out of there, man. But, yeah. Oh, look at that! Somebody commented on our stream and said, "Hey, you know what? If you end up losing when you're doing the championship game, Butler's uniform, steak dinner, and you got the lapel mic on doing sideline reports pregame."
That's fair.
Okay. If one of the number 2 seeds get upset,
it'll make it more interesting. I'm not saying that it can't, but it'll make things more interesting.
So Bragg and Scott, just be ready on standby.
Wait, not for the championship. No, I finally get to call one.
No, you said this would be pregame. You said
okay.
That's what you said.
In a Butler's uniform.
Yep, you get to go to a Butler's.
Like, hello, sir. Can I ask you some questions?
Hey, I'm already going to be wearing a suit to the championship, so you'll just be kind of matching me, except it's more a Butler's suit with like the.
Hey, I'm going to look fresh. I'm going to wear my little.
I'm gonna be in sweatpants and a long sleeve T-shirt.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
I'm gonna debut the freshest shoes anybody's ever seen. So there's incentive. If you want to make it to the championship, if you want your team to be in it, you'll get to see my shoes. They are so fresh.
Well, they're going to be there anyway because of the consolation game.
They are so fresh. I cannot wait to
all
wear them.
4 of the semi teams are going to see them anyway because there's the consolation game.
All right, so make sure y'all stop by and see them.
Just look down. Instead of acknowledging Isaiah, just look down. Just look down.
They're so fresh.
All right, what's your shameless self-promotion?
I have a question.
Oh, what is it?
Do you have the bell on? Get the bell on, and that way on Friday night,
and Saturday,
if you're at one of the on Friday night, if you're at one of the playoff games, you'll get notified when we're doing the other playoff game, so you can sit and watch a playoff game and watch the other playoff game. How about that?
Yeah, simultaneous. You'll see the score and everything. Watch them both. So, yes, we are broadcasting both of the semifinals this weekend. We have not 100% finalized anything because we're still waiting on word from one more person, but we'll go ahead and leak it anyways. So this is the best scenario we're looking at. Myself and James will be on call from Christian Community for the semi against Christian Community against Lancaster, and then Isaiah will be down in Bell Buckle. If he confirms, he will call it with superstar quarterback Cole Warren. Cole Warren, the FCS quarterback, if he confirms.
The Tony Romo of the MTAC.
Yep, Tony Romo of the MTAC.
The #1 QBR for a career quarterback in collected stats history.
Listen. If you have 10 career games, of course you're going to have a great QBR.
He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 22.
22.
Yes. 3 or more years is what I'm counting.
All right.
But yes, if we get confirmation from him, then Cole Warren will be on call with Isaiah at that Webb Heat semifinal. If for some reason Cole is unable to, then James will be on call by himself up in Christian Community.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Hey, no, it's not sad. He has terabytes of football knowledge in his head.
he's kind of like a mix between play-by-play and color.
He could hold his own.
I can do both. I mean,
yeah. You could definitely do it. That's the only thing I wonder is, from the beginning days of 8-Minute Stream, you had JD calling games with you. Like, when he called them with you, did he bring the same level of insight that you did, or if not more?
No, I mean, it was a different dynamic. I mean, I was bringing a play-by-play side, and he brought a color side. And you have to remember, he played college ball. He went to college to play ball. So,
that's right.
He brought a completely different skill set than Isaiah or Trent. So I'm not going to rank them, because I would say that each brought their own kind of skill set to the game. And that's with any color commentator.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Cole and Isaiah will hopefully be on call from Webb Heat, and James and I will be on call from CCS Lancaster. So we'll have both those semis, and then Saturday, We're going to figure it out afterwards. Hopefully Isaiah will be down there for that fundraiser. I'm sure James is going to show up whether he's on call or not because of the whole fundraiser thing, because we're really, really excited to help.
If I end up going, I'm definitely participating in whatever they're doing.
Oh, yeah, whatever they want. I mean, oh, yeah, that's right. We do have to tell. So we're trying to finalize the stuff with Riverside, and we're probably going to get involved with the fundraising thing on Saturday. If they get raised to a certain amount on their fundraiser for GoFundMe, we haven't decided it yet because someone on Riverside said they were going to get back to us. We haven't heard back, but we've decided 3 tiers. If they raise this amount of money, each of us guys will do the ALS ice bucket
not
challenge.
ALS.
Well, it's the
not an ice, not ALS, but we will dump a bucket of ice.
The Creasy Ice Bucket Challenge is what we'll call it. We'll call it the Crazy Ice Bucket Challenge. If it gets to the next tier, we will do the Blazing Wing Challenge at Buffalo Wild Wings, each of us. And then if it somehow gets to the 3rd tier, which, again, we haven't set these yet because we haven't gotten fully in touch with Riverside, then each of us are doing the Ghost Pepper Challenge. So great way for us to help raise money for Travis Creasy, his family, and to hopefully help him in the fight against leukemia. But, yeah, so go to Riverside's GoFundMe. Contribute any money you may have, and go to the game on Saturday for sure, or watch it on there to be prepared to donate to their GoFundMe, because not just because of us, but so that you could help the Creasy family.
Hey, can I throw something in there?
You always throw in terms of
their fundraising effort. That I don't think they have a GoFundMe, but I know that per their Facebook. Let me get the post pulled up. It says you can go to their website, www.rcanites.org, and then go to About Us, Support, and then click here to donate. Or you can send a check to the school and put Crazy Fund in the memo line. But you can donate online, or you can send them a check. Or if you're going to the MTAC Bowl, you can bring a check to the game, I'm sure, and give it to them as well.
Yep, you can bring a check, or you can go to Facebook on that post there and figure out how you can help to that fund. But, yeah, we're going to be doing all 3 of those challenges if it gets raised to a certain amount, because we are 100% supporting all the efforts to make sure that Creasy and his family are taken care of, because, again, we love Travis. We love his family. We love everybody at Riverside and around the conference. And hopefully the entire conference for good will wrap around their fundraising efforts and, our hopes to raise money for him so that we can best solve things and hope that he wins this battle against leukemia. All right. As you heard, James and I will be on call from Christian Community. If it's confirmed, Isaiah and Cole will be on call from the web school. And we'll bring you both of those semis, and then whoever it is will be on call for the bowl game on Friday at 3 p.m. Oh, goodness. What is with your coughing, my boy?
Hey, listen, want to let everybody know.
Gosh.
Spencer, you almost forgot.
No, I was going to give you your shameless self-promotion moment, my man, because I do that at the end of every show.
Yeah, but you gotta mention this too.
Yeah, but you gotta not interrupt me while I'm talking. That's also got to happen too. That's a big deal.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll be on call for those semis in the bowl game, and we're really excited for this weekend of postseason MTAC football to see who's going to the championship and consolation games. And we're really, really ready for how 8-man football is going to be the next 3 weeks. It's going to get intense. Okay, James, same shameless self-promotion time, my dude.
We say 3 weeks because guess what's happening in 3 weeks? 3 weeks from tomorrow, from yesterday. It's the 2018 Extreme All-Star Game in Dayton, Tennessee, Fort Bluff Camp. We're teaming up with the NACA to do it again. We will announce the players the week of the game. We're going to do a mock draft on that Tuesday night like we have the last 2 years. So that's when we will officially announce all the players participating in it. And next week, we will get you who the head coaches are going to be, and we'll get you the team names as well. Still trying to nail down the captains. It's going to be two alumni of the game, and so it'll be team blank and team blank. We'll also do the coin toss that will decide who gets the first overall pick in the draft and who gets to be the away team, called the coin toss in the game itself. So we will have that coming up next week for y'all.
Yeah, it's gonna be really great for the All-Star game as well. We're really excited for that. We've got a good list of players from coaches' nominations and your votes of who's going there. We already sent out the invites and such. We got the list together and everything. It's gonna be fantastic, and we're really excited for just football in general the next 3 weeks, man. The regular season's over. It's postseason time. It's championship time, and it's All-Star time. It's gonna be great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for Extreme Radio presented by GracePointe Healthcare this week. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online, mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. On behalf of James Shannon, Isaiah Austin, special thanks again to Tim Petitt for coming on the show to allow us to interview him. I'm Spencer Thompson. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you for the semis and the MTAC Bowl game. And for the first time and sadly the last time, we say the regular season is over. The playoffs are here.
See ya!